Welcome, everyone, to our Resilient, Wild, and Unstoppable interview series. And today we get to speak with Anne, and we've been chatting a little bit. And she's got a lot of great things happening and a lot of cool offerings. And I encourage you to listen, comment, love her stuff, and share it. Get to know her. Really be inspired by her story and what she has to offer. So, Anne, I am curious, what actually got you into what you are doing now with women and deeper connections and relationships?
Well, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short and tight. Thank you for having me, first of all. I know, right? Whoa, it's going to be explosive. So, I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be doing any of this stuff, honest to God. I worked the corporate world in the industrial field, and if I couldn't see it, taste it, touch it, hear it, it wasn't real. And it was so logical. So I lost my mom at the age of 23. And that's what kind of drove me into that logical way of being because I worked in a male dominated environment. Now, understand, I'm the youngest girl, all boys. So I was comfortable working with men. But back in the day, in the 90s, I'm going to date myself. It was a rough industry, so you had to have tough skin. So I really, after she passed away, we had a lot of family challenges, going from a tight family to a very broken family. I almost cut my dad out of my life at one point. And my brothers and I, there's an older brother that him and I were always close, but the other brother that's closest to me in age, we were always had that friction. So we drifted even more after she passed away. So living in that real logical world, the brain is always on, always predicting and planning and trying to figure out what's happening in the next 5 minutes to the next hour to the next few days to the next weeks, if not months and years. So
Hmm.
when I was ever around those challenged relationships, didn't matter if it was work, home, or whoever, my brain was always planning. So I was always trying to predict the personality, what challenges am I going to face, and being prepared to handle the challenges. That's how I functioned. And as I grew older, things started to settle. And then I had my daughter, and I was 34 when I had her. And she was like the perfect baby. People hated me because she was beautiful, like she's perfect. I, no word of lie, I had to wake her up to feed her when she was born. And as she started growing and getting into school, she was very quiet. She became and she was always a quiet, shy kid, but really quiet and shy. And then we moved to Alberta. So I'm from Nova Scotia. We moved to Alberta, 5,000 kilometers away, and they assessed her in school. And they assessed her with some learning disabilities, which we were not overly surprised with because she was so quiet. And as she started to grow older, the assessments were getting deeper and deeper. So at the age of 14, um, it was actually during COVID, she was tested, reassessed, and the psychologist or psychiatrist, I get them all mixed up, she diagnosed her with ADD, select mutism, and high social anxiety, which triggered the select mutism. So I had to learn what all these things were. The schools were great here. They were great at supporting us and her and what was going on. But during those years, she's also hitting puberty. So she really started to drift. And I noticed she had like a good relationship with her dad, but the minute I walked in the room, she'd shut right down. And that was my wake up call. That was heart wrenching to watch that happen on a regular basis and realize the pattern. And I thought, you know what? I got to figure out what's going on. It's beyond more than just a diagnosis. So
Hmm.
that's when I started to dive into personal development. And as I started to dive into personal development, I was introduced to like Dr. Joe Dispenza. I joined a small group that was very much run by a lady that is got her shamanism background. So she was into meditations, light language. Never heard light language before in my life until she started doing it. So I was starting to get exposed to all this stuff I didn't know about. And I was introduced to Reiki as well. And that was a completely weird experience for me. And when I first met with my Reiki, right? When I first met with my Reiki master, I was introduced to her through another lady that said, "You should take Reiki." And I said, okay, great. I don't even know what Reiki is. And she got us introduced on Facebook, and she's like, Trish, meet Anne. Anne, meet Trish. Trish, Anne wants to take Reiki. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't even know what it is. So when I got on this call with her, it was supposed to be like a 15-minute discovery call. We were on the phone for over an hour because she started to probe me and trigger memories from my childhood and how that tangible stuff existed. And we just, as kids, because we're undisturbed, we can tap into that stuff as kids. And I had two brothers that were sick. They passed away when I was younger. And she started to remind me by asking me, have you ever experienced something where you knew something before it happened? And she started questioning and probing me in that direction. And my memory started to come back. I'm like, oh my God, as a child, yes. But I had turned all that off as an
Mhm.
adult. And I mean, I'm into my 40s at this point, and she's waking me up to all the, and I'm like, yes, we all were that way. Like, we used to joke about my mother when the boys were sick and they were dying, that she could smell death because she was the only one in the room. Like, the smell was so strong, she could barely stay in the room, and the nurses would come in and say, Mona, we don't know what you're smelling. Like, we have no
Wow.
idea. Yeah, it was crazy. So remembering us as a family talking about this stuff and joking about this stuff, had no idea. So I didn't come up, I wasn't raised in a highly religious family. So this stuff was never suppressed. We talked about it openly, but it wasn't nourished either because nobody knew what it was. But
Yeah.
just the knowingness, like my older brother and I, we were so close, we could almost communicate telepathically when we were younger. He'd be looking for something and I'd just tell him where it is and nothing was ever said. So it's stuff like that she was reminding me of, and I didn't remember any of that because I became so logical. If I can't see it, taste it, touch it, it's not real, it doesn't exist. And she reminded me because she said, do you trust? And I'm like, trust in what? And that's what started that whole conversation. So with that personal development, you fast forward to today, I ended up starting off slow, and then I hired a coach that was in the Akashic Records Academy. She actually owns a company called the Akashic Record Academy. And she started coaching me one on one. And again, this is not somebody I would have hired, a couple of years prior. But the experience with her, every time we met, we would sit and do a little meditation and open the Akashic Records, and our sessions would flow with information. It was absolutely insane. I called them power hours because I've never had so much information drop in so seamlessly in such a short period of time. But with her, it just happened naturally. And that's the Akashic records. It's literally information coming in from a higher source, a higher power, that when we calm our nervous system, and that's why you hear tell of people meditating, getting downloads. And I used to hear this, I'm like, what the hell are downloads?
Right.
I'd be like, what are downloads? Now I get it. It's information that drops in. So even early on, before I even knew what all this stuff was, in that small group that I had joined, she started doing meditations, or she always did meditations with us, but we started getting a bit deeper into them. And that's when the name dynamic living dropped in my awareness. I didn't even like it. I didn't know what it was, didn't know what it meant, but it always stuck with me. So when I got to the point where I started to work with Emily, like years later, that became my business name. And it turned into Dynamic Living Lifestyles because Dynamic Living was already taken when I registered it. So I thought that was awesome because the lifestyles really adds, like, what does dynamic living really mean? It means living our own authentic self without having to worry about what everyone else is thinking, without the judgments and of other people. And we seek this without even knowing it. I did when I was younger. I had no idea, but I always sought after my parents' approval through conversation and didn't even know it till my mom passed away. And then when my dad became distant and we started having challenges, I went through a phase where I was lost because I was like, I didn't realize how much I relied on them and how much they impacted my identity.
Hmm.
Because we grew up a tight family, like we were close, and then when she died, we had that friction. So it
Right.
was during that time of friction that I realized I'm lost. I don't know who I am. And really, personal development started back then, but I didn't keep doing it because I didn't know what was happening. I was
Hmm.
totally oblivious. Like Dr. Joe says, we live in 75 to 85% autopilot. I was probably running at 90 to 95% autopilot. It was crazy. And so through personal development, the astronomical awareness started to come. And that started to really impact because I lived in high stress. And Dr. Joe reminded me that if we stay there, it leads to disease. And I was like, that was my mother's path. Like she died at the age of 57. I was only 23 when she passed. And I was like, I don't want that for me. Right now,
Right.
I'm heading down that path and I don't want that. So I needed to shift and change that ancestral behavior. So I started to work on myself. And doing that, my relationships started to improve. Everything started to shift, grow, and evolve. And I noticed with high stress, most people don't realize they're in high stress. I didn't until someone brought it into my awareness. But what was getting impacted most is relationships.
Hmm.
Hands down, relationships, we need relationships. That's part of a human need. And whether it's everything's good now, it probably always hasn't been. So we've probably had friction in the past, like I've had, or you're in friction now with somebody or someone that you love and care about, or it could happen in the future. So I decided that I'm going to dive into relationships, the areas that stress impacts most. Relationships is number one typically, and then you could dive into, your identity and your purpose, your emotional and mental health, and then also your physical and energetic health. So I work through calm power resets, the meditations. I'm all about bringing people down from here to down here. Starts with breath work. Like breath work is my go-to. I love doing breath work now. And before it was like, this is freaking weird, but now I love it and I embrace it because it does so much so quickly
Hmm.
in a moment's notice. And building on all that, helping people with the personal and professional development. Because when you do the personal development, your professional development naturally evolves. And you and I discussed this before we even started. Like a lot of companies will give all the skills and strategy training around what they do with their company and how to sell their stuff. But the problem with that is that gives you so much potential, but that glass ceiling is there. And what's stopping that glass ceiling is you.
Hmm.
Where are you at in your development and in your world of who you are? How do you think? How do you talk? Like the language you use. How do you think? How you feel? How you act? Tony Robbins takes all of that and shifts it into physiology. How do you show up physically? What is the meanings we give things that are happening to us? And what is the language we're using?
Right.
How are we expressing ourselves? Are we always doubtful? Are we always fearful? Well, I lived in fear. My go to behavior was for safety, and I had no
Hmm.
idea till I started Tony Robbins training. And in that safety, I functioned out of fear, which caused high stress. Trying to control everything was all out of fear. And learning all of this and then piecing it all together and then diving into relationships has been powerful. And to the point where I created inside my community, I created a relationship deeper connection series that just started March 16th, 2016. So it just started last Monday, but it's going to live in there. So as people come in, they can access that anytime they want. But it touches on all of the foundational pieces of relationships, the awareness, the assumptions, the expectations, all of it. And I'm excited for how that's going to grow and evolve.
I can tell your excitement. I love your energy and your excitement and everything that you're talking about. I relate to a lot of it because I am also a very logical person. And when you talk about the high stress, a lot of times it's because, we don't realize we're in high stress because that's our norm.
Mhm.
It's
It's a
like,
very
oh yeah,
scary,
living in high
unhealthy
stress,
norm.
that's our happy place.
I thrived on it when I was younger. Didn't realize that that's what was happening. I was like, give me the high demand job. I'll take it. I'll run it. I'll do it. I'll beat everybody at it. Not realizing that this is keeping my body chemically unstable. Like no
Yes.
clue.
Yes. I actually wrote an article about that that goes to publisher tomorrow, I think. It's
That's
like,
awesome.
I recognize this. And I'm curious because you you had different ways of getting to where you are right now, like different paths that really presented themselves in front of you. And for somebody that is maybe listening to your video and really thinking, oh, I need to start something, or I need to think about what are those first 3 or 4 steps I can take to even think about personal development at the first stage. What would you recommend?
You know what? That's why I opened up a community. I started a community just this year. And so it's fairly new and it's free right now and it's going to be free for a little while. But I recommend people start somewhere. Just do something. It's one thing to talk about it. Like people often say, knowledge is power. And I love what Tony Robbins says. It's not power. It's power when you take it and do something with it. So anybody that's wondering, where do I start? Like it's overwhelming. Shut it all down. That's stress talking. Calm your nervous system and just start somewhere with somebody that you relate to
Hmm.
because that is key. There's people out there in this industry with all different types of modalities. You're not going to relate to them all. So find somebody that you can relate to and then start doing something, whether it's reading books, listening to YouTube, following meditations. Like that's where I started. I started diving into Dr. Joe Dispenza's material that's free on YouTube. And then I joined a group that cost me $40 a month. And that's, I started off slow. And in that slow motion move, it started to ramp up because I started learning about stuff that reintroduced curiosity. It got me curious, it got me asking questions. And I've learned a little bit about a lot. So in doing that, I was exposed to meditations, which I always said I can't meditate. My brain is too busy. I'm up here wheeling. And then I heard Dr. Joe say, there's no such thing as a bad meditation. And anybody who says they can't meditate is bullshit. Everyone can meditate because there is no such thing as a bad meditation. If your brain is busy, let it be busy, but recognize that you have a busy brain and try to, every time you meditate, try to pull it back to the breath. Focus on the breathing. And stress has us breathing very shallow. You don't realize it, but when we're in stress, we breathe very quick, very short breaths.
Hmm.
But when you start to take deep breaths like they teach you to do in all these meditations, when you take a deep breath and you fill the belly and the chest in full and you hold it and then you exhale out the mouth. So breathe in the nose and exhale out the mouth. That calms your nervous system. And if you're high stress, you're going to need to do it more than once. And Tony Robbins, I was just listening to a training of his this morning, actually, and it's the second time I've listened to this training, and I didn't do it the first time, but I'm going to start doing it more now. And he has a very specific breathing he recommends you do first thing in the morning. So he says the minute you wake up, because we all function with emotion, but
Hmm.
emotion is created through motion. So he said the moment you wake up, get your body moving. Forget the coffee, go to the bathroom, do your bio break. But the minute you get up, if you have to start, put your shoes by your bed. If you've got somebody to do it with, great, but get outside and walk. If you're like I am and you're living in Alberta and you're snowed in, right now it's very icy. I have a rebounder, so I have things that I can do inside my house. So, find something to move your body, whether it be inside or outside. Outside is better because that's natural air to breathe in, but breathe a very specific way. And that's 4 quick breaths in and then in the nose and then 4 quick breaths out. So what it is, it sounds like, and he says, keep breathing like that because that breath, doing that single breath, ignites the body. It ignites your metabolism in your nervous system. But
Wow.
he said, as you do it, then do incantations with it. So, not affirmations where you write down and say, I am beautiful, I am bold. Like incantations are nailing that in through the physiology of your body. So, getting your body moving, because, like he says, physiology is the beginning stage of his triad. And when you move the body in a certain way, it wakes you up. It wakes up your mind, it wakes up your body. So start walking or jumping on a rebounder, start walking or whatever it is you do, and start your incantations while you breathe. So, and as you breathe out, you're talking your incantations. I am powerful, I am beautiful. I am, and you just keep doing your incantations, whatever it is, but say it with meaning and power and force behind it as you do it. And when you think about it, when you're on a rebounder, you can literally jump to that breath.
Yeah. Yeah. I might
Like you
lose
can,
track of actually jumping.
well, that's just it. I don't jump on my rebounder because I have a bad knee, but I pounce. I keep my feet on the platform, but I use it for resistance.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's actually beneficial for my joints because I have bad joints. It's actually better for my joints. But pushing my heels into that pad without actually jumping off of it gives you more control. So pushing in as you breathe makes it helps ignite your body. Your body's moving.
Yeah.
And so being able to do this stuff and being able to do it with motion, with mind shifting incantations that come out of your mouth to the point where when you say it with force and you mean it, it changes your body, it changes your
Wow.
physiology.
That's awesome.
And that's why when you go to a Tony Robbins event, as much as people are like, this is stupid because everybody's bouncing around and moving, that's why, because the motion creates emotion. And when you're in a state of unstoppable power, that's how you get there.
Hmm.
So, whenever you're fearful, fear and gratitude can't live in the same place at the same time. So, whenever you get fearful, set into gratitude, like catch yourself and, whew, what am I grateful for right now? And he even uses an experiment, and I love this. He's like, when someone is depressed, what do they look like? Like, what is their posture? Where are
Hmm.
their eyes? Where's their head? Like, almost everybody can describe they're like this, right?
Right.
And he says, now stand up tall or sit tall, stand up tall, shoulders back, head up, put a grin on your face, don't move it, and just sit there with a grin on your face. Now try to feel depressed without changing anything.
Uh-huh.
You can't. It doesn't. It's all built on physiology. So if you feel like you're down and out and the world's against you and everything, change your body, change your language,
Yeah, I feel
and
like
then
Eeyore and Tigger.
yeah, 100%, absolutely, yep, absolutely. So he said there was even a university that did a study of making people stand in a mirror with their shoulders back, grinning for 20 minutes,
Ooh.
not saying anything. They had to grin, head up, shoulders back, grin for 20 minutes. People that were clinically depressed were no longer depressed after doing that every day, 20 minutes a day for 30 days. It literally has wiped out their, because it's all in the motion and emotion.
I had
So
never
motion
heard that
creates
before.
emotion. Yeah,
So that right there is going to be powerful for anybody who hears that.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
That is
Even
awesome.
me, you can see how I've shifted in my chair just talking about it.
Yeah. You're like, I'm ready to go bounce now.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. But it
Yeah,
it
that
it
is awesome. I
changes
love
everything.
that. I'm like, I just want to go do it now. I'd heard the breaths. I also do meditation. And in working with clients, anytime that I hear somebody that says my thoughts are going like this, I can't slow them down. I'm like, then be grateful you have thoughts because not everybody
Yes.
has their thoughts. It's like
No. No.
it's like everybody's like, I want to get rid of the thoughts. No, you don't.
No. That's what's keeping you going. That's what's keeping you juiced.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So yeah. So to the person that wants to start somewhere, start somewhere. Like do
yes.
something. Just do something. Doesn't matter if it's picking up specific books that are around personal development, but I really recommend getting a mentor or a coach because that will help catapult your
Hmm.
experience. Like for me to join that group, that was my that was my kickstart. Like all the free stuff can only take you so far because you have questions. You have, you know, there's doubts, there's questions, and the training itself can only take you so far. But having that connection with another human being, the
Hmm.
relationship with another human being, and learning and growing together, and being able to have somebody poke and prod at you without judgment, without, any underlying motive, and is truly interested in your personal development, that is key. Like some people have to start with therapy, and that's fine. Like
Hmm.
if you find you're clinically depressed or you're in a state, you may have to start with therapy. But don't just stick with one therapist. Look at different therapists and different modalities. Like some people don't even realize there's so many different modalities when it comes to therapy.
Hmm.
Some are covered under our insurance, some are not. I found the ones that are not more powerful than the ones that are, because the therapists that are trained by the insurance companies, they're taught in university, and they're a lot of them are taught to function inside this box. But some of them that have gone to university have learned this box, but they've learned to question that box, and they've taken their training to different levels and they've evolved. So I always seek out people that are in industry and outside of industry and figure out, where am I and what
Hmm.
do I need? My daughter, neurodivergent, what does she need? She's old enough now, she's a young adult. I let her lead. So if she wants talk therapy, for example, I'm going to find her somebody she can relate with to do talk therapy. But she doesn't stick with just talk therapy for 7 years. She'll do it for a few months and then we'll shift it up. I know some people that got into NLP. That is neuro linguistic programming.
Hmm.
So I didn't know what NLP was. And when I started to learn what it was, I was like, I'm interested in that. Well, I can get my certification in NLP and I can be a coach that's NLP certified, but that still doesn't make me qualified to be able to put it through insurance packages.
Right.
But it still gives that extra added bonus, that power. But some therapists are NLP certified. So you've got to understand, whether or not you're regulated by industry or not, there's just as much powerful individuals out there that are trained in doing different things because of their experiences, because of their certifications, or their lack thereof. Experiences alone can give you so much power inside of a container if you learn to be able to help people without that judgment, without that criticism, with safety. Give them that safety. Give them that environment where they can flourish and be comfortable to speak up. Because a lot of people are even scared to talk, even
Right.
in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, because that's how they've always functioned. They're
Right.
not aware that they're fearful of speaking out. So being able to create a safe container where somebody can ask an off the cuff question. I've had so many people say, I got a stupid question. Well, no, it's not stupid. If you're curious and you have a question, that means you're curious and it's worth bringing up, because chances are someone else is thinking the same
Right.
thing, but is also scared to bring it up. So it's not stupid. It's not crazy. It's not off the cuff, but creating that container so people understand that is huge. And
Yes.
I'm the first, like, I've always been off the rocker when it comes to being not scared to say something or ask the questions. But because of the way I functioned in the past, depending on my mood and where I was, I could come across very aggressive. If I'm in a very, male dominated environment and I feel I need force, I could literally come off as a very powerful force, and I could shut people down in a room and I was totally unaware of it. Now I've done so much growth and training myself that I'm almost like a chameleon now. So if I'm with somebody that's excitable, I'll get excitable. If I'm with somebody that's more amiable, I tend to dial it down, bring it back. If I'm with somebody that's very quiet, I can lower my tone. And it just happens naturally now. I can lower my tone. But if I'm in a room, I'll feed off the energy of whoever's closest to me and radiating the most. So I could literally put that person that's amiable, like I could freak them right out in a group, or on a one-on-one session, I could literally draw them in.
Yeah.
So, I very much feed off energy, and I had no idea I was even doing that until I did the work and understood what energy was and how it flows and how it works.
Oh my gosh. I feel like you and I have been on similar paths for a very long time. So this is fabulous. And we've been talking for a long time. So we probably need to close out this interview. And I feel like we could talk for hours and hours and
Oh God,
hours
yeah.
and still talk even more. So this has been, I just love your energy. Speaking of energy, I just love your energy. So thank you so much
Thank you.
for
Thank you for having
stepping
me.
in and spotlighting and being here today.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.